The Justin Robert Young podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/JuRY. Support us there. We could talk about other stuff, but you want to know what? Let's just start the goddamn show. You want to know what? We could play the whole goddamn theme song, but we're not going to. Spoiler alert! Before anybody's disappointed, this is a pre-recorded episode of the show. This isn't live. You're not going to watch it live. You're going to watch it on YouTube. You're going to listen to it on your podcatchers. Currently, throughout the next week or so, we're doing a bunch of cool stuff. Hopefully, I'll be able to talk to you about it by the time that this is airing. But for right now, I just wound up. True story. I wound up just texting our guest here today because I've just been very impressed with the stuff he's been doing lately. He's one of my oldest friends, especially somebody that is in the entertainment, new media kind of business, for which we've kind of taken very parallel but yet very separate paths, both geographically and throughout the stuff that we've done. And all of a sudden, I'm like, it just clicked in my head, hey, you should come on the show. We should talk. And so now that's exactly what we're going to do. And hopefully it's fun. If not, I'm having a good time talking to an old friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Harry Terjanian is on the program. How you doing, Harry?
Doing great, buddy. How are you, man? Thank you for having me.
Oh, dude. No, it's super, super, super fun. So I guess let's start for folks, to just kind of give people a background on how we know each other. I remember one of my, I moved around a lot going to schools when I was a kid, and I went to 3 different middle schools. And so the first time that I was going to high school, I had also moved neighborhoods into Plantation, Florida, which always gets a laugh.
Yeah, it's a great name.
Going to South Plantation High School. If you could wonder, without using the N-word, how you could make Plantation a more odious sounding name to folks.
Yeah.
That one of my, if not, probably my first friend that I met at South Plantation High School was
the same here, yeah.
Harry Terjanian, because as it turned out, we were both into both hockey and wrestling.
It was really weird. And comedy.
And comedy.
Like the three nerdy things that nobody else wanted to talk about in high school. So I was just excited to find anyone who liked one of those things, let alone 3.
Yeah, it was thrilling. It was amazing that it was just like, and if I remember like our first conversation, it was just like awkwardly stumbling around, which is something that you do when you are a fan of one of those 3 things. Comedy a little bit more popularly, kind of there, but certainly hockey and wrestling, you always have to backwardly stumble into like finding out if somebody else is into something. Like you just like drop a Patrick LaFontaine reference and just scan their eyes to see whether or not like there's a flicker of recognition,
I still do that with girls now. Like if because I'm dating around there.
Yeah.
I'm out and about. I'm making some moves, and so every once in a while, like I'll let a girl know that I'm into wrestling or whatever. There's that hope, or like I have a drawing. The nerdiest thing I own now is a gift that I got from some friends of mine. A drawing of Adam West as Batman, done by JuRY the King Lawler.
By JuRY the King Lawler, right?
He's a fantastic artist. So I dropped that line to some girl who was a little bit geeky. I was like kind of hoping that she would be into the Lawler thing. Not so much. She didn't know who he was at all.
Let me ask you this. Do you want the girl that's into wrestling, or do you want the girl that is open to getting into wrestling? Or at least, and let me not even say getting into it, tolerating it. Like, because I feel like... That would
be nice.
Yeah. I feel like the second is kind of... That's the better way to go, right? Because you don't want to get into an actual argument about like, I don't know, like Rusev is better as a face, like with your like significant other, right?
Well, maybe, because I feel like the post-wrestling argument makeup sex must be great. I don't know. You'd think that would maybe, after you talk about who should have won the Royal Rumble, maybe, you settle your differences, and then, maybe there's like some passionate stuff after that. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't imagine, because like the way I really lapsed, and then I got back into it when the network came around. But at that point,
Right.
my girlfriend, then girlfriend, now wife, had already moved across the country to California. So all of a sudden, I'm just watching like, Halloween Havoc from 1998, and it's just like, hey, suck it, man. This is how you have to deal with it now, because this is just who
Yeah.
I am.
Sorry, you came in at the deepest, worst possible time when there's an infinite amount. But going back to our thing, yeah, we met in Mr. Madden's was it World Geography? Was the
I
World
think
Geography Honors
yes,
was the class.
yes.
And yeah, literally I hated everything about that school except Mr. Madden and meeting you, I think was that was my attitude. I think you ended up making more friends, but I had hated everything about it until that particular class. So that was awesome in a lot of ways to
Uh,
meet up and find somebody who had the same interests as you was kind of cool.
no, super, super fun. And you were down there for how many years? How many years were you in
I did
Florida?
2 years there. I talk about it like it's prison. I did 2 years in South Florida
In South
before
Florida.
I came back up to the New York, New Jersey area.
You
It was really
also you
yeah.
also had a rough go of it too, because number one, your family, I think we can politely describe as intense, and
Yeah.
on top of that, I mean, you guys did take ownership and management of a gas station,
This is true.
like in one of the worst neighborhoods
I
in
I didn't know it was one of the worst neighborhoods at the time. I didn't realize in hindsight it was not a great no.
No, it's a bad neighborhood. That area is not good. I mean, that's the cool thing about South Florida, and I mean, cool as much as you want to factor it, is that like uh there you can drive from like the Versace mansion
Oh
to
yeah.
like a literal slum in like 5 seconds. Like that's one of those parts of South Florida that is very Central and South American, where like opulence sits next to absolute abject poverty,
Oh
like
yeah.
within five
Just
seconds.
blocks of each other. Yeah. Well, in
Yeah.
hindsight, now that you bring up how bad, do you realize how many shifts I worked at that gas station alone? Me and my little brother.
Oh
Me
yeah.
being, I think, 16 at the time.
No,
My
yeah,
brother
because you
being
guys are
11.
you guys were not like again. We're in high school, early high school. We're talking about like ninth and 10th grade. I think is when you were at.
Yeah.
We
I
were
did freshman, sophomore year.
in the same school, and it's like your weekend was just like, yes, somebody tried to like, I think somebody tried to rob the store, but I locked the door before he was
Oh,
able to
that's
get
right.
in.
There were a couple frat guys who came in late, very late. We shouldn't have let them in, but I mean, my dad was there at the time for that. It was closing time or whatever,
Yeah.
and you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. But we're closing up the gas station, and they tried to make it out with cases of beer. They just tried to grab and run. It's like
Yeah.
frat guys in hindsight. And we, we ended up like punching one of them or whatever, and then a couple threw some bottles at the window and stuff. I think we ended up locking one of them in, but then my dad's like, "What are we gonna do? Just let
Just
him out
let
of
him
here.
go, right?
It's not gonna be a hostage. We're not gonna now like torture him like it's Reservoir Dogs to get, to get information. Like, what are we gonna do? They made it out. They're running out. So just let them out, lock the doors, and whatever.
I mean, like, 'cause I
But yeah,
remember I thought I had it bad because my stepdad ran an independent carpet cleaning company. So
right.
periodically, I would have to wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and go pull hoses and clean cat piss out of random apartments. And I'm like, I have the shitty job. And the next thing I know, I go and talk to you, and you're like, yeah, I'm in a gas station off of Commercial in 95. Like,
Oh,
this is it was not in comparison, because again, not only is it a gas station in not a great neighborhood, you're also 16, and people
yeah.
are like trying to take advantage of you and your younger brother.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it didn't happen often, but my dad was also off doing other stuff, working.
Yeah.
When I look back on it, there's a couple clues that it was a bad because we got, you'd get the orders from the old regime. They'd show you how to do it, the
Yeah.
person who sold it to us, and we used to sell these. Sometimes you'll see them. It's a single rose. It's a tiny rose about like maybe 2, 3 inches high, maybe 2 inches, and it comes in a glass tube or whatever. And they were very popular. We'd sell a lot of them. I didn't understand why we were selling them until somebody smartened me up and said, "Well, what happens is you can use that glass tube to smoke crack with it." So here I am going, people love these roses. What's up with
Man.
these dumb little novelty roses?
Yeah, I'll tell you
Oh,
what.
this guy bought like 3 or 4 of them. Wow, he must really love
He must really
miniature
be lucky
flowers.
in love, like he's just he's all over the place. I'll tell you what a scoundrel with so many ladies around.
Well, my dad loved Florida. We lived. I mean, I've grown up in the New York area. I was born in Queens, grew up in New York, New Jersey area my whole life. My dad loved Florida. We had family down there,
Yeah.
so he decides he wants to live down there. And for years before he bought the gas station, we would go. Our family vacation was every year we'd go as a whole family down to Florida. Orlando sometimes, more Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and it was half the vacation was just their fun, doing stuff that was fun, and then the other half was my dad looking for businesses to buy. So we were thinking about like laundromats, gas stations. Like he really wanted like what he thought was a pretty like sensible, lucrative business. He wasn't into like trying to hit the lotto or any shit like that.
Yeah.
And then he settled on a gas station for some reason. There's no reason we owned a gas station other than he wanted a business before he moved down there. He's a wedding videographer. In hindsight, I still don't understand like
Yeah.
the logic behind it, but whatever, man. I mean, he wanted it. We moved the whole family down there. I wasn't that happy down there. Oh, those are yeah. Well, yeah. You know what? I guess now they have a bulb at the bottom of it. That's different.
So
Before it was just
now they're really cracking it out, right, with these tubes here.
they're not even yeah. See, they're not even hiding it. I think now the people who make the glass tubes are almost now they're like, hey, we got to cater to the customer.
Exactly. We're here to please. We're here to move these tubes, baby.
Like, oh, I do love the idea that the guy going, yeah, I just got into the business of making these novelty flowers my wife used to make, and I don't know, people love them. I don't get it. They're flying off the shelves.
Oh my God! All right, so let's get into some of the stuff that you've done. I mean, you have probably done stand-up comedy for longer than anyone I've ever known that has done it. I mean, this is something that you got into pretty much almost immediately once you moved back to New York, right?
I did it. I started doing it the senior year I was in high school. My last year in high school,
Gotcha.
I started doing it towards the end, and yeah, a couple of my friends, because I would do videos and stuff. I was always doing like the TV channel and all that stuff, and I do funny videos.
Yeah.
And my friends there, kind of liked them. And like and I'd always wanted to do stand-up comedy since I was like 14, but I just it was just a scary idea. Also, where do you go when you're 14? I had no concept of like how to do it,
Yeah.
so I would just write material that I had never done anywhere, and I kept putting it off and putting it off. And my friends wanted me to like, hey, we want to see you do comedy. Go do comedy. I finally did a bringer show, what they call bringer shows, where you have to bring the audience.
Yeah.
So I'd bring my friends from high school, and I remember the host of the first bringer show. The first show I ever did was Ed Helms, who now of obviously formerly Daily Show, The
Yeah.
Office, big time movie star. Now back then he was hosting the bringer show,
Gotcha.
and yeah, he was the first guy I worked with, and yeah, I started doing comedy at the Boston Comedy Club, and just didn't stop from there.
So where I mean, like, what is that journey like? Because obviously there is something that I've always been curious to talk to you more about it because
Okay.
it's something that has kind of been, it becomes lionized in popular culture because so many people come out of the New York comedy scene, right? And
Yeah.
you can often, I remember I would come to visit you up in New Jersey, and that was the first time that I'd ever heard of like the Comedy Cellar, and this is long before like Louis C.K. was putting it on television or there was any element of it, but like it was always something that the more it leaked out into pop culture or into my vision of it in pop culture, the more I was kind of curious as for somebody in your position where you're just trying to make a name for yourself in a very complicated, competitive situation.
Well, it's definitely really competitive. Every year there's just more and more people who do comedy. Like I think I came in like I always have perfect timing because I showed up right after the boom of like stand-up comedy was kind of done, where they were done like giving out these big development deals and all that sort of stuff, and these big festivals. They kind of like stopped doing that right as I started doing comedy. Like they stopped the Aspen Comedy Festival, which was this big festival where you could go and make a name for yourself there, and And also, I showed up doing comedy right before 9/11. So I'm always like really
You were
keen on the
there
time.
right for when a city was ready to laugh.
Yeah, they were some good times. I started at probably, I want to say like, I don't know, 5 months beforehand, like, all right, New York City, and then bam.
City of Dreams. What can go wrong?
And so it's really competitive. It's kind of cool. There's this weird thing of it's competitive, but you get to work with these really great comedians all the time because they're like the other night, I ran into Chris Rock because he's running around working on sets. He's working on stuff. He's got new specials. So
Yeah.
you run into him all the time. You run into Chappelle. You run into these people, and I don't know. I'm not saying I know them particularly well at all. I don't, but you see people all the time that you get. It's weird. The hierarchy actually kind of mixes with the lower level guys a little bit if you're
Yeah.
lucky, or at least the middle ground if you're lucky. So it's this big hodgepodge of some of the world's greatest comedians and some of the worst comedians all at the same time, and everyone fighting for spots. But it's the place people really want. If you really want to work on stand-up comedy, you come to New York City. It's just there's
Yeah.
just so many spots, so many rooms. One time at NYU, when I was at NYU, I started this stand-up comedy club just as an excuse
To do it.
do comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, on campus,
Yeah.
on whatever campus New York City has. The amazing part is I would book these shows, right? And these were the lineups of the shows that I had, and this was probably like 2003, 2004. Nick Kroll, I think John Mulaney. I'd have Aziz Ansari, Joe DeRosa.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some other names, some other people that were on it. Like that. That's the level of people I had, and nobody would come out to them. Like
Because
nobody
they were
was
nobodies at the
aware.
time.
They were nobody.
Yeah.
But
like, who gives a shit?
Right. But the best part was I remember one night I showed up, like this was like 3 or 4 of these shows where like I would hand out flyers, I would put them in the local paper for free.
Yeah.
Free shows with these people. Nobody would we'd get 2 or 3 people, like 1 or 2 hippies that didn't even go to the school, but they just like the free newspaper. They would show up to free stuff and they were great, whatever. But the one night I show up, there's a line packed around like the floor I get up there. There's a line packed on one of the conference rooms. I'm like, holy shit, maybe this is finally
This is taking off.
taking off. Finally, people, I knew it. I find out in the grand ballroom, in the back of the room, that seats about a total you can fit in about 600. They were doing a cappella groups, a night of a cappella groups.
God damn it!
And they were charging, by the way.
Of course,
they were charging $10 a head. Sold out. Comedy nobody gave 2 craps about.
I mean, God forbid, you want to see a budding young comedy minds instead of somebody else singing John Mayer. When you have that, I mean, you got to bang down the doors, break out those $5.
I probably should have left the business right then and there.
Oh man, no, I mean, and you were also in. While you were at NYU, you were in the group with DC Pearson and name is escaping
Donald
me.
Glover,
Donald Glover,
Dominic
of course.
Circus. A lot of cool people. Yeah, it was an NYU sketch group called the Wicked Hammer Cats, and it was this it's just this college sketch group, but for whatever reason, the people who ran it were like these amazing comedy minds. They had Donald Glover, DC Pearson, Greg and Lou. Those guys are on the internet. Greg and Lou were in it. A couple other Fran Gillespie. She's now a writer on it. A lot of people have gone on to write. I almost forgot Rachel Bloom. I worked with Rachel Bloom.
Oh,
She's
really?
on it. Yeah, she was in it. Towards the end of my run, she came in, kind of like it's one of those weird crisscrosses where somehow Will Ferrell and
Robert
Jimmy
Downey
Fallon
Jr. Yeah.
Yeah. One of those, but she was there. Dan Greger and Doug Mann, who are producers, they were there. So a lot of really cool people. But it's just one of those things that I auditioned for, and it was just this amazing, high level sketch group. They really ran it like it was. We'd go to these comedy festivals. Other colleges would do these comedy festivals, and we'd go and do these cool things where you just drive up there, get in a car, whoever had a car, you go with them, you drive up there. No hotel rooms or dorm rooms. You
guys slept on my floor.
Yeah.
You guys came out to Syracuse because I was doing sketch comedy as well, and they put together a comedy festival at Syracuse, and we were actually, if I remember correctly, we were I might have been graduated at that point. No. I was living there because I saw the place. So you guys came out, and that's like the one thing, especially now as Donald Glover, like blows up. I'm like, a dude slept on my floor. Like, that's pretty cool. I get to say that. I headlined over Donald Glover, and he slept on my floor.
Rachel Bloom slept on your floor.
Oh, look at that. I didn't even know that. The story gets better and better.
Donald Glover and Rachel Bloom slept on your floor, not together, maybe together. I don't know.
Who knows?
Let's get some rumors started. It doesn't matter. They slept on your floor. The other thing with that, by the way, is was that the night Dennis Haskins hosted?
It was. Yes.
That was the principal,
Mr. Belding.
Mr. Belding was the host of the show that night. And my favorite part is that he, before the show, he goes, "Hey, listen, guys, this night is about you. It's not about me. I get why I'm here. It's all fun, kids. I'm going to keep it moving, and don't even worry about it. You guys do your thing. You guys seem like a lot of fun. I bet you guys are going to kill it, blah, blah, blah." And then he would proceed to go out there and do 20-minute chunks at a clip in between the sketches. Oh, my God.
So, number one, and this is something that I found out subsequently, he just harvests ass. Like, that's like his goal. His goal is quantity of people who have young women who have fond, nostalgic memories of Saved by the Bell, who get too drunk with Mr. Belding and submit to his sexual wiles. Like, that's his goal. And as I've heard through legend, he is very successful at it. And that was his thing. No, he came back. I remember that. He came back and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, don't worry. This is for you guys." This was, I think it was called like the Empire Comedy Festival, because it was Jake, the guy who booked it, wanted to really make it a cool thing and wanted to brand it and wanted it to stay along.
A lot of people. It was in the big theater or whatever, wasn't it? It was like a couple hundred people for these sketch groups.
Yeah. It was great. It was a great opportunity for everybody. And at the point where he started doing Saved by the Bell trivia, you just realize that, like, okay, I get it, man. Like whatever. You're getting paid. Nobody, I don't think, was getting paid, or maybe it was like.
I think he was. He was the only one getting paid.
He was getting paid for sure. He was for sure getting paid.
None of us were getting paid.
I mean, maybe it was like $100 for gas or something like that. But like,
well, that happened. I never saw any of that. I don't know who took that booking money, but I never saw any of the gas money.
No, dude, Mr. Belding, he gets it raw, dude. Like, that is no lie. And he did.
Yeah, he's notorious for like wanting, even at the UC. He somehow showed up at UCB one time, a couple times, and he is like, it's like, hey, stay away unless you want to fuck Mr. Belding.
Yeah, no, go ahead and take an early trip to the after party, unless you want to hang out and submit to the will of Belding.
Just know Mr. Belding is DTF.
So you've now how long have you been working with I mean, you've been in radio for a long time. You worked at the Ron and Fez show. I think that was at the point that I mean, geez, I'll tell you what, I'm actually just now in talking with you realizing like how much of my own sensibilities came from us being into stuff together, because you were the person that first got me into Opie and Anthony back when they were still a local New York radio show. You're the one that then got me into Ron and Fez because you were working with Ron and Fez. And I think when I moved to New York after college was the first time that, or maybe I was coming down from New York when I was in Syracuse, was the first time that they were moving to XM, and that was when you got officially hired with them, right?
Yeah. Well, what happened was, I'd listen to their show. I listened to Opie and Anthony when I came back up here, and then subsequently Ron and Fez and stuff. So while I was still in college, got an internship working there for Ron and Fez when they were on NEW in New York, and they do a lot of written comedy pieces. So I would just, as an intern, I would write, and I knew that going in, like, you can write stuff, and like that was my whole goal, was to write and produce stuff. And so I would write these bits for them and then use them on air, and it was great, and you just write these dumb pieces. You'd hear it that day on air. It was like a really amazing experience, especially for like being 19 and not having done anything. Like, I'm really in show business. This is on air. People are listening to it. And they moved to DC. Eventually I worked my way up to being a producer for them at XM when they came back, and just did a lot of pieces. it didn't end so well, but it was a great experience, as far
Well,
as like
they're
getting into radio.
fairly notoriously a rough
Yeah.
place to work, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of ball busting like on air, but like I think Ron likes to shoot, if that makes sense. I guess this is not the wrestling podcast. He
Sure.
likes to really like if he's gonna bust your balls, he's really gonna bust your balls on air and off.
Yeah.
And
Because
and it was a
they
little
want the shattering of the human soul there. It was funny because between the two shows, Opie and Anthony, certainly a very mean spirited show. But usually it was, there were times where they would shoot inside, right?
yeah.
But by and large, it was being mean to the outside world, right? Like,
Oh yeah, for the
the
most
enemies were
part, yeah.
beyond the gate.
But
Ron,
even when it was with them, it was a lot of like ball busting on air and
yeah,
then off air because I interned for them for a summer as well when they were at XM. But off air, it was like they were very nice to that staff
yeah,
for the most part. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of ball busting on air, but they still respected those guys and what they could do and everything else. Off air with Ron and Fez, it got really mean. I mean, at one point he blamed me for Fez's heart attack, and I was laughing about it, and he goes, "I don't know why you think that's funny. I'm legitimately serious. You gave him that heart attack." I'm like, "Oh Jesus, he's really trying to
yeah.
break me down mentally." Well, you know what? Recently, I still have not made amends with all that. Recently, we were supposed to possibly there was mention of having him on a podcast on a live podcast that I kind of put down because I had not kind of
On the beige Phillip thing.
yeah, yeah, we were doing a live show, and then that came up. The idea that came up, which I was like, "Yeah, I don't think I'm ready."
Why
I got
not?
some. I here's the problem. It was in front of a live audience.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, let's just put it this way. I did say there was a 5% chance I might punch him in the face.
Well, I mean, yeah, but that'd be why it's there, right? Like that's
Yes, but here's the problem. I understand. Listen, I come from the same school you do, which is the Opie Anthony. Like, hey, if we're gonna
book
do
the
something,
heat. Book the
book the
heat.
heat. Right. The problem is this with a live audience. If I bust that, you can't blow out the main event 5 minutes in, and then have somebody walk off,
Yeah.
And then they're stuck there going, what are we watching now? Like it wouldn't have been like good in that way. Like I'm aware like controversy is great,
Yeah.
but I don't know that it would have ended up well 5 minutes in because there's no way I could have gone around. Like I couldn't do a show around it without kind of going right into it. Like I can't. It's just not one of those things.
All right. Well, here let's take two steps back. So,
Sure.
you made reference that it did not end well, and you can go as much into that as you want, but in general, that is something that I know personally as your friend.
Yeah.
Was like scarring. Like it's hard. It's hard to. Especially when that whole community, right? That shared. There was a lot of like shared talent and shared staff, and obviously a shared energy and audience between the Opie and Anthony and Ron and Fez show, especially when XM came around, where it was a smaller audience. They now no longer had the ego gratification of a free radio where so many more people listen and so many more people get to be a part of the experience. And then all of a sudden, the people that broke you into the business, that you were a fan of so much that you became part of it, are now the people that kind of ran you out of that community on a very public scale. Talk about that.
Sure. Well, all right. So I'll preface this by saying this. As far as Ron Bennington as a comedian and as a performer, he's brilliant. Like as a comedian, he's a hilarious person. As a broadcaster, he's amazing. As an interviewer, he's one of the best. So I can still laugh at things that like even stuff. I'll still listen every once in a while. Someone will send me a clip of something that's kind of interesting, and he's still great. I take nothing away from him as a performer. As a human being, it's a little bit different. I found him like a little bit deficient, highly deficient as a human, and difficult to work for. I think part of that is when they came back to New York, they were, they that thing was so at its peak of talk radio. Like talk radio had hit like this high mark, not in accounting sports radio because that's big now, but like just entertainment talk radio, the mid to late 90s,
like
it was on
shock
fire.
jocks. Like what even is a popular shock jock now? Like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were the biggest people on radio that weren't Rush Limbaugh or New York or LA sports radio. Like there were, I mean, like the fact that anybody knows who the fuck Bubba the Love Sponge is tells you everything that you need to know about how big that genre of radio was, because he was just a guy in Tampa.
Mancow, all those guys. Now, but I think Opie and Anthony and Ron and Fez were kind of a little bit above that level, but they still got lumped in. I mean, they were part of that
movement. The genre was exploding, and they were big acts in a big market. So that's that.
And they're fantastic. But that bubble burst with that whole Sex for Sam stunt that the Opie and Anthony guys pulled, that killed the whole thing. Like, because it stopped a lot of stunts from happening. Those guys, that killed definitely that station and the whole New York scene in a weird way. And that's like when I started, was after that happened.
Again, so you're perfect timing, man. You're like the reverse Forrest Gump.
Everybody's printing money. People are getting jobs. I show up, and all of a sudden, bam.
Yeah, I'm here for the freebie. Oh, wait, they're stopped handing out successful careers? Ah, shit. Yep.
Just as I show up with my suitcase and my hat in hand, ready to kick off my career in show business, I've made it to New York City, fellas.
That's it.
I got off the bus in Iowa, and here we go. We're gonna make some, motion pictures, and they get so literally like I started in September. That they got fired in August or whatever. They technically weren't fired, but suspended.
Yeah.
In August, so like 2 weeks before.
This is Opie and Anthony. Opie and Anthony were kind of put on ice, and then that also sort of begat the transition of satellite radio's got a shit ton of money. It seems as if the biggest problem with shock jocks on terrestrial radio is they can't do certain things. So this is the natural move. More money, guaranteed cash. Sure, it's going to be a smaller audience, but if you have super passionate fan bases, which a lot of these shows very much did, that seems to be the solution to everybody's problems.
Yeah, and they'd gone, the station they went to D.C. for a while because they were syndicated on a couple places. So one of them absorbed them, which was Washington, D.C., as just the local show there. They went there, and I think they had a decent run there, but, it was just kind of, I think it popped a little bit of, the bubble for them, or, it's a little bit of a step back to go from New York to D.C. I mean, literally I think they're the sixth market,
Yeah.
They came back up here. Now we're starting, it's even a smaller thing. It's satellite radio. I think they felt the need to come out swinging hard.
Yeah.
But I was still writing bits for them in D.C. and everything was going great. And they brought me down like as a test run before they came up here. I came down there for a couple of days and stayed with Fez and wrote bits and was the third mic on air, and they loved it. And so the thing that I got was, hey, we love what you're doing. That's perfect. What you're writing is perfect. Your contribution on air, we want you to be our third mic. We want you to be like the exact word, like our Jim Norton.
Yeah.
So I was like excited about that. All right, waiting.
That's it. That's the best thing that you can hear, right?
Yeah, and I will confess I made a mistake by interning for Opie and Anthony before they came, just because I thought, let me get in there and get a vibe of it, and plus I needed the college credits, and I kind of messed some things up over there, stepped on some toes unintentionally and stuff, and that didn't set a good vibe, but. Regardless, they came up there, and I think they wanted to hit the ground running. And for them, the show works best when they've got like a heel or a bad guy to work with. And if they don't have one, they're going to kind of create one.
Yeah.
They make one. So how do you make one is no matter what that person does, it's no good.
Yeah.
But I guess they're almost like method actors. Like, no, we don't pretend on air and off air. You are now going to be a fuck up.
I mean, here's all I know is that since the period that I lived in New York and I was listening to XM, every day because I was working an office job, I've only been able to check in periodically with those shows, right? And with Opie and Anthony, even at the point where they were obviously at a point of diminishing returns and then, they wound up kind of exploding, there were through lines. Right? There were producers that had still been there from when I used to listen every day. There were things that were familiar. There were characters that were there. Whenever I checked in on Ron and Fez, whole new cast of characters every time.
Yeah.
It's just like the turnover on
There's a
that.
lot of turnover,
Oh
and
my
that's
God.
for a reason. It's an intense gig, and
And
they
maybe
make
I
it
was
that way.
sensitive to it because I knew what had happened with you.
Right.
And I mean, well, here's all I really need to explain at how fast those things turn over. You got me my first little portable XM receiver, right, when I lived in New
Right.
York, so I could listen to you on the radio. And by the time that I got my thing set up, you were off the radio.
Yeah,
Like that
things move
went
fast in this
quick.
business. Yeah, it was a very short run up there. Well, what started to happen with that was like I just got the crap beat out of me on the air, and I go, well, and people would go, well, how can you leave that? That's like publicity for you to do stand up. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't do me any. My stand up career doesn't do any good if I'm just getting my ass kicked on the air. Who's
Yeah.
going to want to hear me anything that I have to say? If I'm a goofball and an idiot on the air. And it was just, yeah, they tore into me pretty hard, on air and off. And I was just like, this is not going to be good for my career long run. But aside from that, it was just more like a personal thing of like, this guy, the day I left was this, there was a lot. I'd watch interns cry under my watch, like
Yeah.
people who work for the show cry. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But I also didn't, you're young, so you don't know how to deal with it. Like, I didn't know how to fight back. And, I just wanted to hold on to my job. And so there was one point where, he had said something to me that, like, oh, he goes, so you're not so much a comedian, you're just more of a fan of comedy, which is like, oof.
Well, and
That's
that's like that's somebody that knows you and
sure.
knows that they want to get under your skin and they're going to say things that like that to me is something and as a fan of the show, right? I
Yeah.
know that this is his thing. He's a great interviewer. He's a very
This is all
incisive
fair, by the
interviewer.
way.
What was
This
that?
was all fair.
Oh, I know.
This,
Yeah. Oh, like what there is an intelligence behind it. Like it's like the raptors in Jurassic Park, where it's just like,
right.
oh geez Christ, like there is an intelligence and a ruthlessness here that is uncommon, and when it's channeled for good, it creates great,
Oh, sure.
amazing interviews that are on air. It creates great comedy. It creates such amazing timing. But when it wants to be destructive, it's gonna
Oh,
be
yeah.
really destructive.
And so he said that, and I knew what he was doing. I knew exactly what he was doing, which was trying to purposely tear me down. But I was like furious that he was doing that. Like, why are you? I'm just working hard here, and I had a coffee cup that we'd have all the pens in that you're bringing in to set up the studio. And I go, I think he wants me to fight back. That's what he wants. I think he wants me to fight back. I think if I smash him with this coffee cup, he'll respect me. And I
Really?
went, oh, okay, I gotta go. It's time for me to go now because it's literally like your
So
mind.
when your thought was,
Yeah,
what he wants me to do
right.
is to
Is
hit
hurt.
him with a coffee cup to
Just smash it
start a
across the side of his
physical
head.
altercation.
Yeah, I
You're
think he
like, I
wants me to
gotta
fight
go.
back. I gotta go because this is not gonna end well. If this is my and it seemed what bothered me, it seemed really logical at that moment. Like in that moment, it seemed very logical.
That
And I
should
was
be
like,
your first question when you eventually have him on the podcast, whether or not he wanted you to hit him with the coffee cup.
I don't even think he'll remember that instance. I'm sure to them it's we'll break you down to build you back up type of
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but like I would take that
Although I
stuff
don't quite
personally.
remember so many people coming out like super huge from that, right? I remember a lot
No,
of people like in what seemed to be bits getting fired on air and then never showing up again. I remember people having mental breakdowns. I don't remember a lot of
sure,
people
yeah,
being like. I don't remember. I remember a lot of breaking down. As a fan of the show, I don't remember a lot of building back up, I guess, is what I'm
yeah.
saying.
That's my point. Is I
Yeah.
think they start with the idea is, hey, we'll break you down to build you back up, but no one really sticks
We're
around.
still waiting. We're still
I'm
waiting.
still
One of
waiting.
these days, we're going to
I mean,
get.
listen, I came out stronger for it, but that's not because of that.
Yeah.
Like, but I just remember like, so there was a lot of anger and resentment, and it's still there. And listen, it's on me. So when
Yeah.
they asked that his name came up as a possible guest, I go, I'm not kind of done with that yet. Like,
You got to get
that
over it,
probably
though. You know you
should be.
have to get over it, right?
Oh, I'm aware logically that I'm supposed to.
No,
I'm
no, no,
aware,
no, no.
I'm aware of all
For
the
your
logic parts that
for
resentment is
your
just you
career.
drinking poison.
No,
Yeah,
because
wait for the other person to die. Yeah,
your career, you only get over it two ways, right? Where
yeah,
either you have overwhelming success that you can lord over them, or you make amends with it. And one is in
yeah.
your control and the other isn't. And
That's true.
so that's the only thing, as your friend, the only thing I will say is that, like, for you to progress in your career, especially in comedy, where like
Right.
you're being in touch with your wit and distilling it is that's your machine, that's your
Right.
product, that's what you do, right? Like you gotta get over it eventually. I mean, not
Yeah,
now, but
you're right.
you got it.
No, you're right. You're right. And listen, I'm aware that this is 100%. I don't. He doesn't give a shit. But
No.
that might be the
Oh
part that's
God,
bugging me.
no.
The
Uh,
thing is, the thing is this: had I gone back there like a year later just to say hello, it would have been all smiles, and which is fine for them, but that would have bothered me more, is what I realized, because to me
yeah,
it was a serious thing. But the other thing is, I was worried that to do that show, like, all right, this is kind of all happening pretty quick. He's so funny and so quick that if he says something slick, I probably would not have been able. That's why I said 5%. There, I'm pretty in control of what I do. I don't. I've been in the same places he's been, and I've politely kind of ducked out of there. Just like I'm not. I don't want to cause a scene at this place type deal.
yeah,
So, but part of me would be like, all right, well, grab me by the shirt collar now, and see if it's going to end the same way.
yeah,
Get in my face now the way you did. See if it's going to. But it's stupid. It's stupid on my part. I know that,
yeah.
but I got to get over it. So, yeah,
I
this
mean,
has become a therapy session. I saw one of the
I
comments.
mean, hey, listen,
Yeah, it has
like,
become a
I don't
therapy
know.
session.
I care about you. I care
No,
about
I
you.
appreciate it, brother.
So let's
Yeah.
let's let's let, let, let's talk about Beige Phillip, because you are
Oh,
you're
yes.
you're doing Beige Phillip now. Uh, I talked to you years ago when you first started it, and for those of you who don't know, Beige Phillip, an offshoot of a show that used to be done on Opie and Anthony's XM channel. Again, the same channel that we're talking about with
Right.
Ron and Fez and Opie and Anthony. It was a late night show with now deceased legend Patrice O'Neill and like Amy Schumer. Right before Amy Schumer was
Well,
anything,
she
like
would be in
she
there.
would
They'd have a
stop in.
couple guests and stuff. Amy was one of the guests.
Yeah,
Like, here's how weird comedy is. Amy Schumer she used to work for me in one of the rooms, technically work, but she used to bark, which is when you go out and you hand out like
yeah,
flyers or try to get people to come in for stage time. Like, it's just weird how quickly, like, bam, and now she is a millionaire. So you run into all these people, you never know where they end up. Like, it was always good, worked hard anyway. But yeah, Amy would be on the show. They had a lot of different people who'd come on the show. They'd have different female guests, but yeah, it was done with Patrice O'Neill, and he
yeah.
had Dante as a co-host.
Dante
And
Nero as the
Dante,
co-host. It was it was a very popular show. It was one of those things that I was always kind of surprised, or you would even, I even remember it being an on-air bit now that I talk about it, that like if Patrice O'Neill was an easier person to work with and for, that his career would have been limitless, right?
sure, yeah,
Because his talent was
yeah.
certainly nothing that you could say anything about. Um, and now the show moves on. At least the spirit of the show moves on with Dante, his co-host, on the show, and you, as well as a cadre of other people. I finally started listening to it because I'm an asshole who doesn't support my friends until years afterward. Uh,
Listen, Serial is really, it takes up a lot of time to listen to Serial. I don't blame you.
Takes up a
You know what I mean?
lot, man. But it's great. I love it. It has such an amazing singular energy to it, and is such a fantastic representation of what I loved about the original incarnation. You guys should be very, very proud of it. How did you get involved in that?
Well, all right. So the show, the original show, and this show, it's relationship advice
Yeah.
mostly for guys.
Yes.
The concept of the show is that, like, feminism is needed for sure, but there's certain aspects of it that actually turn women off from guys because we become too soft, or just different sort of like elements of what it is necessary to be a guy and date and have relationships, and
Yeah.
what aspects work, when it's important to be manly, when it's not, and etc. So that's how the original show started, with Patrice kind of hosting it, because he would go on the Opie and Anthony show, and he would give out this like sex advice that they thought was just so unique and
Yeah.
different because it doesn't fit the, happy wife, happy life sort of demeanor.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And even though like I'm a very soft, kind of like very sensitive guy, but there's moments where that's come to hurt me. Being too soft sometimes is not good, and actually women kind of don't want that. That's kind of our theory. So that's how that show started
Well,
out.
there's a lot of just, I mean, really, when you distill it down to its essence,
Yeah,
the core is just like self-confidence, right? Like,
absolutely.
but
Yeah,
you can't do a thing that's like, oh, have more self-confidence, because that's so much easier said than done. The voice that you
absolutely.
guys use is so unique, but ultimately, and this really, here's all I need to say, and this comes from the Black Phillip show with Patrice O'Neill, or maybe it was Opie and Anthony. But one of the things that had stuck with me to this day was like,
Yeah.
if you're in a relationship that you don't think, or maybe you think your partner's cheating on you, you don't think that your partner's giving you respect, dress up every day. Like,
Right.
go to I think the line that sticks with me forever is go to the grocery store in a tuxedo. Just every like just top hat and tails. Spend 3 hours on yourself every day and just wait for everything to change. Because and really, when you break that down, what is that about? That's about, oh wait, like, now all of a sudden, if somebody's suspicious because they are stepping out on you, they're like, wait, what the fuck? Like, is this person, like,
Right.
is he going to go meet somebody else? Right? Like, and now, like, oh wait, if we've gotten far too comfortable in our relationship and we don't trust each other, now all of a sudden maybe it is worth it to get dressed up. Maybe there's something of worth here that you were overlooking, right? And that to me is what. Obviously, listen, the show is very coarse, right? And it certainly is very male focused. And whenever you get into, what is it isn't feminism and how much it's needed, that's going to be a touchy subject for people. But ultimately, the core is respect yourself, respect your boundaries, and other people will respect you more.
Absolutely. And part of the thing is the idea behind the show is kind of that our instinctual drives still exist. As much as we think we've evolved, our instinctual drives are still very basically the same as they were as cavemen, in that like women eventually, for the most part, and all these things are like, they're generalities, and obviously you can always find one or two people that doesn't fit into this, and there's exceptions to every rule.
Yeah.
But the idea that women do want to at some point have kids, there's an instinctual drive. Even women who don't want, they make it past that drive to have kids. For the most part, they want to have kids, and men want to provide and protect, like, and the two kind of meet together. It's the definition of providing and protecting is different now than it was then, but those drives are still there. So the concept is that you have to be a strong guy, not so that a woman is subservient to you. It's so that a woman wants to give you control, like wants you to be with her and wants to allow you to protect her in that sense. So the perfect example we always use is like Oprah, right? Oprah, there's nobody richer than Oprah. Like, how many? There's very few people, She could do what she wants when she wants, but she still has. There's an episode that Dante points out. Stedman, they're buying puppies, and Oprah's like, "Oh, I want all the puppies," and Stedman goes, "No, you can't." And it's like, who the fuck is Stedman? I'll buy you, Stedman. You ain't shit. But it's not about finances. He has to go, hey, you get one and I'll get one, and whatever. She could get 100 puppies if she
can
wants.
buy another house. She could buy a house and a personal assistant for each puppy.
But he has to be there to provide something else, whether it's emotional support, whether it's just physical love or physical protect. It's whatever it is. Sometimes it is finance. Sometimes it is providing. But it's all different. That doesn't mean that a woman can't be independent. That doesn't mean that a woman can't do her own thing.
And by the way, for anybody who's listening to this that finds any of this objectionable, I think the spirit of the debate around these questions is effectively the meat of the show, right?
Sure.
That's the point. If you're listening to this and you're like, I don't agree with that, and look at all these other examples, that's the point of the show. I encourage you to listen.
Right. And listen, and this is coming from me, and I'm like, I start out as softy as you can get, like as liberal and lefty. I'm like super uber like women's rights. It's not about that. Like, it's not about going, hey, men rule, women suck. It's acknowledging women and men are different. Like we have differences. That doesn't mean we need each other. Doesn't mean one is better than the other, but sometimes we refuse to acknowledge that there's a difference.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense because we don't do that with any other animal in the animal kingdom when we study. There's no nature documentary where we go, the bonobo chimps are both exactly the same, equal in their roles in each and every way. Like it just doesn't, it's all right to have different roles and different things that you do. It's fine. But the way the show started was, and I'd known Dante. We've been doing comedy about the same time. I think he started about 2 years before I did, maybe a year or so.
Yeah.
So I'd always known Dante from doing stand-up, and just one of the sweetest guys, even though he looks like a killer. And he kind of is. He could. But he's as sweet as he is mean.
Yeah.
We did some stand-up gig together for the late Mike DiStefano, who had passed away. And our management company booked us together. And I just kind of recently broke up with my my long-term girl at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through some stuff, and Dante was just talking to me about it, and I didn't realize all the things in hindsight that I did wrong, that he was kind of explaining to me where it kind of went wrong. Cause he's like a guru of relationships and sex, like there's almost no situation he can't handle. So he's kind of like breaking that down for me. And he'd kind of been itching to do the podcast again and asked me to do it with him, just because my perspective is kind of completely different than his. Cause he's this big, tough machismo guy, and I'm this really soft, sensitive guy. And I really kind of realized I had to come to the middle of that. Like one of the things I realized that broke up with why my relationship broke up was I was too open and too sensitive, but not just too open and too sensitive. I wasn't taking care of myself.
Yeah.
So when this relationship started with her, she had met me doing comedy. And I was, it's very impressive. I'm, a young mover, shaker. Things are going great. That's attractive. I got my own life, my own career. Yeah. When we were together, I was so comfortable with her that, like, when things didn't go so well and I was depressed, I wasn't hiding that from her. And unfortunately, like, when you're around, after a certain point, like, even if she's the nicest girl in the world, after a certain point, you're moping and bitching and crying is very unattractive. Well, not because you're open, but because you're not fixing it.
Exactly, because what you are in your own mind, you're thinking, oh, well, this is therapy. I need to get this out. It hurts me to keep it in. Yada yada yada. When you can lose track of how long you're doing that,
Absolutely.
Like it's real easy to like look at the clock and it's like all of a sudden you have the big bushy beard and you're like, oh my God, how long have I been doing this?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. So. Like I wasn't taking care of myself, and it's just unattractive. How am I supposed to protect her from stuff if I can't protect myself? And
or even if you want to get into the larger up with people thing, how can if every relationship should be on some level everybody helping the other party to achieve what they want to do, whatever that is in life, be it career, children, financial success, whatever. How are you being the help to her if you are not helping yourself? And how can she help you if every time she's like, hey, feel better, you're like, I don't know, I'm sad.
Yeah. How am I providing whatever I need to provide? How am I providing for her if I'm not providing for myself?
Absolutely.
So that's the thing that just didn't occur to me. I thought, okay, if you're with somebody, it's okay to but it's okay to be sensitive and share. But if you're not fixing it, that's a different story. Now you're just draining that person, and then they're no longer attracted to you.
Yeah.
And that's something I didn't understand, all those things. And that was a revelation to me. And from that point, like, all right, let's do this podcast together. And, there's a lot of small revelations like that you learn. Some of them more controversial than others, but it's all done with this idea of like, it's a tough battle because it's a lot of people going like, oh, this is kind of anti-feminism or this is misogyny, and it really isn't. It's just a different perspective that guys don't have. Women have all these articles.
It's something a little bit more nuanced than like, let's say, Red Pill or Tom Likas or something like that. I think, I don't know.
Right.
And maybe it's because I see you as a part of it and I know who you are. It's a different thing. And also I know where the show came from. it's a smart show that very much encourages debate, and
Sure.
the provocative elements of it, I think, are very much there as a starting point for a larger discussion, because
Absolutely, yeah.
the baseline there. There was something like this that when I mean, listen, I live in the fucking Bay Area, right? Like, which is about as charm and soft as any of the
Sure, yeah.
elements of the country can get.
Which, by the way, ironically, one of Patrice O'Neal's favorite cities to perform in, he'd always list San Francisco as one of his favorite places to perform, which is like that within that area.
You want to know why? And
Why is that?
I have this theory with comedy and sports. Uh,
Okay.
there is, number one, either are as culturally ingrained as the East Coast is. And having lived on the East Coast, both in the Northeast and in the Southeast, like the difference between culturally New York and Florida, not all that much, right? The difference between Florida and Syracuse, not all that much. I mean, like, there are certain market differences, right? And there are
Right.
ways to tell the difference, but it's like, the the romantic language. It's the difference between Spanish and Italian, right? It's like at
Right.
the end
Right.
of the day, you can figure out one if you know the other.
Right.
It's easier to pick up. West Coast is not like that. West Coast is a very different kind of aesthetic, and it's harder to explain unless you live out here. But one of the things is that a lot, especially sports and especially comedy, you can't just repeat a ribald joke that you heard a comedian tell or you heard on television, because now
Right.
you are the person who's saying that, as opposed to on the East Coast there is, and again, this is hard to explain, but it's like on the East Coast, it's like, yeah, no, this is a thing. That person's from here. There's like this different cultural kind of embodiment.
Right.
Same
Oh,
thing with
makes sense.
sports. Sports is just like, you walk into most bars in the Bay Area, they may or may not have sports on. You walk into any bar in the Northeast, there is sports on. It's just a part of the
Absolutely.
cultural fabric that is not the same out here. So
Sometimes it's just pardon the interruption. You're like, this really doesn't need to be on visually, but all
exactly,
right.
and it's like, it's like the vegan mixology restaurant has has around the horn on, right?
Right.
Has the 30 for 30 about Boswell, right? Like, it's just
Right.
like it's not a weird thing out there with sports. When people go, you want to know why people get stabbed at Giants Dodgers games out here? Not because everything else is so gentle. When you come to the gladiatorial kind of element, people just react on a different level than they do on the East Coast. And not to say that it's more intense, it's certainly more jarring, and there's almost more of a release there. And I think it's the
Okay.
same thing with
Maybe with the
comedy, where it's like,
yeah.
here's where we can laugh. Here's where we can go for this kind of thing. And it's something that I've noticed the longer that I've lived here, because
That's interesting.
it's like, you want to know what they are? They're safe spaces. They're safe spaces for these like aggressive,
aggressive people.
instincts,
That's funny. It's our gathering.
Because I
It's
always
like-
wondered, it's like, man, you go to a Giants game, like, it's super fun, and you go like, hey man, we'll go to the craft cocktail place, and then like we'll wander down, beautiful stadium right on the water, you're taking Instagram pictures, there's a bunch of chicks there, which you will not necessarily see at like a Mets game, for example, right?
Right.
It's a fun
Not just
scene.
old
And then you
guys.
wonder, like,
Yeah.
why are people getting stabbed in the jugular when the Dodgers come to town? And I think it's because when shit gets intense, it just is like this like
Too
primal
much
release.
steam to let out. It's letting
Yeah.
out all the steam at once, of like a tea kettle. It's boiling.
It is. It's a weird scene, but that's why I think, because you hear this constantly, that San Francisco is one of the best stand-up comedy towns, that people film,
that, yeah.
they shoot specials out there and everything because they love the crowds, because the crowds are kind of explosive, and I think that's why.
Oh, nice. But you were saying, sorry, before I interrupted you about it, you were saying you're being from, as far as, San Francisco, which you said is like soft as, downy soft as you can get.
Oh.
There was what were we talking about there? Sorry, because I guess it was coming from me, you knowing me, as far as the show goes.
Oh, no. I mean, I just think that, like, listen, there's an element of that of the Beige Phillips show that I think is very Northeast, and it's very New York, right?
Right.
Like there's the invitation for discussion is very often a statement
Awesome.
and not a question, right?
Right.
It's like, what's the problem with, this is why you guys are all fucked up. Discuss.
Yeah, you're right. And
You
if
know?
you're the thing, well, we actually have like it's funny. A lot of the humor also is very like bravado and intense, which
Yeah.
is also kind of a Northeast thing. So yeah, the word bitch gets used every once in a
Oh, I
while,
mean,
which
listen,
is
the first thing
that's
you hear is get your balls back and all this. And it's
right.
like, and this is, I think, I don't know. To me, it's something that it's like, I get it. I spent a little time there. I know,
Yeah,
I've known people. I mean, when you're from South Florida, you grow up around people from New York your entire life because half the people
yeah,
wind up moving down there and living in New York for the couple of years that I did. So it's like it's something that I understand, but I could get where it at times can get lumped in with the like mega militant like
sure, yeah.
break down women psychologically and harvest their eggs to further the species kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is sometimes that gets lost in all that the conversation. But we've had a lot of we have a lot of different opinions. We like having different opinions on the show. We don't just want it to be like a bash fest
Yeah.
or just dudes. We try to have a female element. We have a female co-host on every show that we can, and we always try to get some type of balance. And it's we've had a lot of people who describe themselves directly as feminists on the show, and everyone always, whether they agree or not, has a great time on it. And it's definitely worth listening to. It's a lot of fun. It's a unique perspective on relationships. I've had a great time doing it, and it's affected my life in the positive because I am a good guy, and there's nothing wrong with being a good guy. The problem with being a good guy sometimes is you get taken advantage of. There's another element. So it's
Yeah.
something for everyone. It's something like, how do I harness this good energy without, being annoying or coming across as weak or vice versa? How do I take the good parts and make them work and get rid of the bad parts of any aspect, even if you're an alpha dude or whatever? How do you make all that work?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you what. One of the things that I noticed with you over the last probably few months is like on social media, great looking pictures of you. You're just talking about how you just had these funny stories on Tinder and everything. Like I just
Yeah.
think that energy of like best foot forward. I think has
Well,
made your outward appearance, I think, just amazing right now.
yeah,
You're
that's
you're just
part
in
of
a
it
golden
is
a golden moment.
oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, you're not the first person who said that. And oh, if you enjoy that, just stay tuned to more of my social media. There's more of that coming
Good.
because there's a lot going on. So no, I appreciate it. Yeah, that's part of it is making you great so everyone so that other people can appreciate you.
Uh,
That's always a tough battle. Like start out as a shy fat kid in Mr. Madden's geography class.
There you
It's
go.
different.
I mean,
Yeah.
listen, when the person you're talking to the most is another, a kid who's grown a beard at 13, talking about hockey and wrestling, it ain't exactly where the chicks are, right? And I feel like,
Uh,
we've done our best building ourselves up as we've gone along. I'll tell you what, this show is already overlong. Harry, where can people find you?
You can find all my social media at Harry Terjanian. You can also go to ihatecomedy.com. I got to update the site, but it'll at least send you
Great
and give you the
URL.
right
Oh my
spelling.
God, 5-star URL.
And the show itself is the Beige Phillip Show. You can go to beigephillip.com. We're on iTunes. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's a funny show. It's an interesting show. I feel like it's pretty unique. I'm really proud of it. And relationship stuff. If you have any, and we have a lot of female listeners who love the show too, and we help out female listeners with different issues as well. So it's for everyone. Enjoy it. Please come aboard.
Absolutely. Go ahead and check it out, Beige Phillip Show. And did you give out your Twitter, Facebook?
Yeah, it's all at Harry Turjanian.
There we
So
go. At Harry Terjanian. Well, thank you, man, so much. It's been great catching up with you. Folks, if you want to send emails into the show, you can do so at justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. Also, Justin R. Young everywhere that you have social media. If you want to subscribe to this show or follow it on Twitch, you can do so by going to justinryoung.tv. Until next time, thank you guys for dealing with the recorded version of the show. I will see you guys next week. Oh, also, please don't die.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.